Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
That was lame. It's been lame at every Mass. Has your Easter joy faded at the 5th week of Easter? We're an Easter people. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Great. Now you're as good as the other Masses. Excellent. I was hoping somebody would get it on the first try. Now I ask, how is your reputation? Nobody's answered. 4 Masses, no one's answered. So I thought about this for me. I think I have an okay reputation in business, and obviously to get myself here. But it's because early in my career, when I got out of college, my first 15 years in my career was spent in manufacturing. And eventually I moved into a sales role. But in manufacturing, I befriended a man in a quality assurance organization. And if anybody's been in manufacturing quality assurance don't always get along. But I found this guy to be a great source of knowledge, had a lot of experience, and so I looked at him as kind of a mentor. And over the course of our interaction, he said a couple of things to me early on that I've retained throughout my career. He said to me, when you leave your job, the only thing you take with you is your integrity, which essentially is your reputation. And the other thing he said to me is, perception is reality. So, in other words, how I view my reputation is not necessarily how everyone else views my reputation. So I worked very hard in business to hopefully have a good reputation, and the same in this role. In our first reading today, we hear about St. Paul, who doesn't have a very good reputation. He tries to join the Christian community, and they're having none of this, because here was this great persecutor of the Christians. So you can understand they're a bit apprehensive. Paul actually condoned and witnessed the stoning of Stephen, one of the first deacons. So I'm very happy to not have been one of the first deacons. What we didn't hear in that reading is just a couple of verses before that. Paul historically had been a good Jew, and the Jews were all about persecuting the Christians. So he had a good reputation among the Jews. But then he had that conversion experience with the risen Christ. We forget that Paul never met Jesus while he walked the earth as a regular man. He met him as the risen Christ, and that was his conversion experience. And so that motivated him to no longer persecute the Christians. So his reputation with the Jews had fallen apart, and they wanted to kill him. Just 2 verses before this reading, they're looking to kill him. He goes to join the Christians, and they say, we don't want any part of you. He's a man without a home. I'd suggest to you, you're all here because of St. Paul. St. Paul never lost sight of his conversion with the risen Jesus and the unconditional love that Jesus and God has for each of us individually, and for him in particular. St. Paul is called the apostle to the Gentiles. So unless you come from a Jewish background, you're here because of St. Paul. So you can either blame him or thank him, however you want to view that. But he's the reason we're here today. So I thought about that and his focus on Jesus' love and the unconditional love that we can't earn. And love is an action word. Much as I'd like to, I can't tell my wife I love her and then go hide in the basement. I have to act on that for her to believe that. There has to be some outward sign, some activity. The definition of love is actively willing the good of the other. The key word being actively, not passively. And so we hear about God's love for us, and we might forget, we can't earn it. There's nothing we do to earn God's love. We're loved because we're individual creations of God. Each one of us knows each one of us and loves each of us unconditionally, no matter what we've done or what we're going to do. And he wants us to get closer to him. And we hear that so often, I think, oh, it goes over our head, or we might just pass it by and not really grasp the greatness of that understanding. We can't earn his love. We can't make him love us. He already does. So I tried to think of something unique to maybe point that out more emphatically this weekend. So I thought of something. Having been a 40-year reader and collector of comic books, you might be aware that a new Avengers movie opened this weekend. One of the Avengers is Thor, one of the superheroes. And don't worry if you're not a comic book geek like me, I'll tell you his backstory. Thor is one of the Norse gods, immortal. His father is Odin, and he lives in this realm. Not our God, obviously. But he angers his father, and he loses his father's love and respect. So his father banishes him to Earth. Thor's weapon is his hammer. And so when he comes to earth, his hammer comes with him. Except now that he's lost his Father's love, he's no longer worthy to wield or hold the hammer. So he goes to lift the hammer, and he can't lift it, nor can anyone else on earth. And so he wanders the earth trying to figure out how can he earn back his Father's love and get the hammer back and be back into his Father's good graces. So he sets about doing something that will make him worthy of his Father's love. He tries to do good deeds. He helps someone cross the street. He tries to do his good deed of the day. Each time he goes back to the hammer, tries to lift it, and fails. And so he has no idea what to do to earn back his Father's love until the earth is injected. And Thor has now made some friends on earth, and he selflessly sacrifices himself on behalf of his friends and the earth. And this is the thing that earns back his Father's love and respect. His selfless sacrifice of himself. Sounds kind of familiar in our faith, except we don't have to earn our Father's love. We already have it. So Thor gets his power back. And I thought, there's a great example. So I wrestled with Chris Hemsworth, and I was able to get Thor's hammer. It's hard, I have to get back to him after the Mass because the movie's on there. But the illustration, I hope, is valid for how much our Father loves us and that we can't earn that love. So if some of you may be in a place where you feel unworthy of that love, or you don't receive that necessarily, as important as it is each week, I invite you to come up after Mass and lift Thor's hammer. I just ask one thing. Don't destroy anything. I can't figure out how I'm going to explain to Father like the Easter candle or the altar has been destroyed by Thor's hammer. That won't go over well.